Brothers and sisters, boys and girls.
Take it away. Brothers and sisters, boys and girls, Ask Us Nation. We hope you are having a great Tuesday. I technically say Tuesday, happy Tuesday at the beginning of the intro once we go into things, but I'm just going to say it twice because it's Double Tuesday, right? It's Taco Tuesday. We hope you have a phenomenal Tuesday. We hope you're having a great day today. And if you're not listening to on Tuesday, that's okay. We hope you're having a great day. Stefan, we got a pretty good episode, right?
We got a great episode. So we go into Judges chapter 14. We're starting to learn the story of Samson. But what I love about this is I feel like we, in Bible school, Bible Sunday, we learn just like a little snippet of Samson's story, but we don't really learn the whole thing. And so we're diving into who Samson truly was. And we learn about how he's impulsive and he's rash in his decisions. He's kind of a hothead. But how does that relate to us? And so the whole theme of this episode is how to be obedient and how to step away from bad habits that are human nature and to be more like Christ.
Yeah, 100%, dude. There is a lot of great takeaways in this. And you guys might even notice this too. We're constantly taking in critique from you guys and listening to the words that you say on how we can do this podcast better. And we kind of take a different flow. So instead of just doing a basic overview of the whole thing and then just going into the takeaways we got, we're kind of taking it verse by verse or section by section and then talking about those takeaways as we kind of go through it. And Stefan and I agree. We think that this is a better flow for us. We think it helps a ton with just the conversations and with getting the points across and you guys being able to follow along with where we got those from versus they're like, how'd you get that takeaway?
Where's that from?
Where did that come from? So we got lots of great things there. We have a great reaction from Stefan when it comes to holding hands. You're going to love that. And,
oh, God. Please edit it out.
No, now I have to keep it in there. It's a great episode for you guys, and we think you're going to love it. So with that being said, Stefan, are you ready to do this?
Let's
do this. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Ask Us Nation. We are live in the Lion's Den. And when I say live, I mean technically we're live right now, but this is pre-recorded because at the time that you guys are probably listening to this, I will be almost done with my mission trip in Zambia, Africa.
Tell us about it, Remy. What are you going to be doing in Zambia?
I'm going to be painting toilets and singing Kumbaya. It's going to be a great time. No, I say
wait,
that.
What? I was like, seriously, wait, what?
No, that's what the guy that runs the organization, he always says that because he's super passionate about this type of ministry. And so whenever he like explains it to people, he's like, we're not, traveling thousands and thousands of miles to just paint toilets and sing Kumbaya. And I was like, all right, bro, bring the heat. Like you just out here calling people straight out. But what we do is it's called bush evangelism, which bush just means like the very rural outskirts land in Africa. It's I think in almost all of Africa, it's called the bush. I'm not 100% positive, but I know a lot of countries call it that. And it's kind of like the wild, but it's where a lot of tribes and villages are that are too far away from the government to reach and get a lot of support. And so they usually don't have, they don't have like standard homes. It's literally sticks in mud and they have like palm tree fencing and it's very, very impoverished, but they have very little connection to the outside world. And so we go and we have translators and we preach the gospel to these people and ask if they want to receive Christ. And what we'll do is we'll spend a few days with them, usually like anywhere from between like 3 to 6 days. And by the end of it, after we've reached as many people as we can with the teams that we have, we'll do like baptisms with them. And then when we leave and we come back home, the organization is based out there and they'll go back out to those same villages and they'll host church on Sundays every single week, but they'll do it under like a tree. They won't do like a building or anything like that. And so they just want to see consistency and they want to see that there's actually like hunger for like God and his word and a relationship with him. And as they do that, I think that it's anywhere between 6 months and a year. And once they've hit that quota or that mark, and they're still consistent with like people that are coming, then what they'll do is they'll provide the material to build a church, but then they'll encourage the village to be a part of building it. So they get to be a part of that. And then we train pastors, and then we find people within that village to train up to be pastors for their own village. So they'll go through like a Bible college, and they'll learn how to read God's word, how to teach from it, and how to, speak from the pulpit and to be a leader. And then they'll send it back into their community, and they'll continue to grow with that church. And so right now they have 19, 20, I think we have 20 churches right now, which is crazy. Wow. So massive, it's growing. And we're one of the only organizations in the Western province of Zambia, Africa, that go and do this mission work. So it's pretty hype.
That is really, really cool.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to do this, are they able to like hop on and do this?
Yeah. So we'll be promoting it more. I wanted to do a team this year from Ask Us Why, but I just got too distracted with everything else we were doing. And so signups are going to start up. Once we come back, we'll be promoting for the next year. And even if you live in a different state, you don't have to live in Phoenix. We've coordinated kind of how to work that out and get you to still be a part of the team. But these trips are nuts, dude. So anyone that wants to get involved with this organization can. And it's super cheap, actually. So Trail Missions right now only charges $1,000 to go, and then it's just your flight. So like if your flight is $1,500 and it's $1,000, that's $2,500 to go for like 16 days. Wow. Which is nuts. And then what we'll do, we'll raise an extra $500, and that's to go do like fun touristy things at the very end of the trip. But that's like separate from what the mission trip is, which is nuts because most places charge like $4, $5, $6, $7,000 to go on mission trips like this. So it's super affordable. And the work that we do is insane. Much better than what Jack will call painting toilets.
And singing Kumbaya.
So anyways, that was a little promo for you guys. If you guys want to get involved with it, stay tuned for that. But just be praying for our team and that we're just making impact, and that hopefully we can build another church out there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, man. Building churches in the bush.
Churches in the bush, bro. It's built different.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, we're gonna jump right into Judges 14 here. It's crazy to think that we're already in the 14th chapter of Judges. We've been walking through this, man.
Yeah.
So we last episode talked about the birth of Samson. Mm-hmm. We talked about his parents getting this vision and talking to the angel about how they're going to have a son.
Yep.
And now he's alive. He's born. And he's this young buck who is just the worst. So I'm just going to read from this. It says that Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. Then he came up and told his father and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. But his father and mother said to him, is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives or among your people that you must go and take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? So like couple kind of crazy things from this. So like culturally, we've kind of just know this, that parents usually would set up the marriage for their kids. But yet Samson's like, that one, get her for me.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where there's like that fat kid with the chocolate and he's like just like sipping from the river. Like that's Samson, like has so much impulse and zero discernment.
Don't they have the same fate?
Dang, son. Oh, geez. I don't think they have the same fate. I don't know.
No, doesn't he get stuck in the tube?
He gets stuck in the tube. You're right. And then like, yeah.
I don't know if they get him out or whatever.
He dies.
I remember I was traumatized from that. I literally was traumatized from that.
So well, anyways, like he's just so impulsive, and it's kind of sad because we kind of have that in our culture today. Like everything is based on love at first sight.
Yep.
Do you believe in love at first sight? Like, is that something that you're into?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Really?
No.
I love it. I'm down for it. Down for that conversation.
Just hit you with a curveball. This is not what we prepped. What are you doing?
We didn't even prep this. So
stick to the script. No, I am a firm believer that it is a load of crap. This whole love at first sight thing. I think it's something that Hollywood has created, that we see through entertainment, through movies, through TV shows, even sometimes through social media. We see these love interests that come because they saw someone and they're like, at first sight, I just knew you were the one. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. You know, if you look at someone, you're like, I'm going to be with you for the rest of my life. And I just knew it right there. I'm a little creeped out. I've also seen like, isn't there like a whole thing right now where it's guys that go into like youth group and tell girls like, God told me that you're going to be my wife one day.
I don't think that's a now thing. I think that's like a forever thing.
Oh, forever thing?
Oh, 100%.
They still feel the calling?
Yeah. No, like, I mean, like, I think that guys have probably done that since the beginning of time, where it's like, I've been inspired.
He spoke to me in a dream.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe in it. And for so many good reasons. And I mean, you might be attracted to someone when you see them at first. Sure, people can be beautiful. Men can be handsome, and you can be, they can give off like an aura or like a demeanor and a presence that is inviting and exciting. I mean, like when I first met you, I experienced some of that where I was like, this guy seems fun. He's joyful. Like, I want to be around this kind of person. And those are very valid things. But I think that we've construed what the word love means. And so we misdefine, or we falsely define what we mean when we say that we fell in love at first sight. I think that we mean that we were attracted to them at first sight. But love is a much bigger topic of like what it means to actually love someone.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually heard a conversation recently about like, is there such thing as the one? And I actually believe there is.
Yeah.
And so hear me out on this. I believe there is the one, but that changes. And what I mean by that is right now there's somebody that you're compatible with.
Yeah.
Like you and Alyssa, you're compatible, and I'm compatible to Chasey, right? You know? But over time, likes and interests and things, those change over time.
Yep.
And so love and choosing the one, you have to choose over and over and over that you're going to support that person. You're going to care for that person.
Yeah.
And so you meet somebody and you're clicking on all cylinders, but over the course of time, over 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, those things that you're compatible on and you're interested in are going to change, but you have to choose to love that person regardless.
That's huge.
And so if you're picking somebody based on just like a quick snippet, swipe right, like you think that person's super cute, like that's not the depth. Like you have to, love is not a feeling.
Yeah.
Love is not a feeling. It's an action.
It's an action, and it's a choice.
It's a choice over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So anyways, we continue on. And so, he likes this girl and he wants to be with her. So then Samson and his father and mother, they go down to Timnah and they go to the vineyards, which you should be like going ding, 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 ding. Something's wrong here, because we talked about this last week. He has a Nazirite vow.
Right.
And in a Nazirite vow, you can't touch dead bodies, you can't cut your hair, and you can't drink wine.
Right.
Yeah, he's chilling by a vineyard.
Yeah.
Like he's getting so close. Like he's getting so close to the edge, and he's just tempting himself to sin. And man, we see this all the time with people. It's like, man, I know this person's bad for me, but I'm going to text them late at night.
Right.
And
yeah, you know what I think of the first thing that comes to mind is the question that you probably get all the time being in youth ministry is like, so how far is like too far in a relationship? And the mindset in our head when we ask that question is like, so how far am I allowed to go before I'm getting close to the edge? And it makes me think of this story that I heard a long time ago. There was a man who was trying to hire two truckers. He was trying to hire one trucker, sorry. And he had two different candidates, and he asked them one simple question. He was down in the line. Both of them were great candidates to fit the position. And he had one more question for them. And he showed him a picture of a cliff, and he said, how close do you think you could get to this cliff without falling off? And one of them was like, dude, I am a master skilled driver. I could get right up to that thing, literally to the centimeter, and it wouldn't fall off. And the other guy was like, I'm not going anywhere near that thing. What are you talking about? And the guy hired the guy that said, I'm not going anywhere near that thing. And the point is like, why would you risk that? Why would you get so close to that? Because there's so many factors that could be involved. Like what if wind gets involved, or all of a sudden like there's like a mudslide or any kind of natural disaster that gets in the way of that, like that truck is going down. Like it's not a matter of how close you can get, but seeing this in opposite terms of like, don't get close to it at all. So if you're someone who has a temptation with, one of the biggest things today that we struggle with is pornography. So if you have a struggle with pornography, don't go watch rated R movies in the theaters or at home late at night alone. Like if you have a hard time containing that temptation or fighting against it, then don't walk that fine line of like, well, there's only a couple of nudity scenes in it. And like, I'm okay. Like I get through it and I'm fine. I'm like, okay, you're fine today, but in a week from now, you build habits and that wall slowly starts to come down.
Yeah, you say like movies, but talking to students, I think people, just being a youth pastor, talking to high school guys, I think a lot of the times it's not the movies. I think even just scrolling on Instagram provokes thoughts.
Yeah.
They see girls posting in bikinis, or they see all these different things on like the pages that they follow.
Yep.
And it's like, man, like it's not just the big things, the big movie. It's even the 5 minutes that you spend on your phone on Instagram and TikTok. It's like, don't do that.
Yep.
Don't do that. But something that you said is something that I've been preaching for a while is God never calls us to virginity. He calls us to purity. And there's a huge difference between trying to keep your virginity card and trying to be pure.
Yeah.
Like you can make out with somebody and not be pure. And I think when we were asking the question, how far can I go without hitting virginity, without losing that, you are missing the calling of what God's asking us to be, and that's pure.
Yeah.
Like you're skipping so many steps just in purity alone. So I think it's a silly question. I think we're asking the wrong question, because God is calling us to be pure of mind and pure of heart in every single thing that we do.
Yep.
And so that's probably something that we should be pumping more is virginity. I think is an American culture thing.
Yeah.
Purity of heart and being pure before marriage. This is something too that I've noticed, especially in my dating relationships. Every single step that you take, the step that is before it becomes less significant.
Yeah.
So I remember like you're at the movies and you put your hand there and you're sitting there waiting for them to touch your hand.
Oh yeah.
And then like you finally hold hands and it's like, oh. So good. Like, oh yes. And then like you hug for the first time, or you kiss.
Yeah.
Or then you kind of slip into that next thing.
Yep.
And then you have sex. And it's like, if you have sex holding hands, it's not that special.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to be pure and wait till marriage, is because within marriage, everything has its significance.
Yeah.
You're holding the person that's promised to be with you forever. You're hugging that person who's going to cherish you and love you despite your flaws and is choosing to love you, like we talked earlier. You're being intimate with somebody that you want to produce life with and that you want to care about. It's so much deeper than just an action and a selfish desire.
Yeah.
So
don't hold hands. That's the moral of the story, guys.
don't hold hands.
Do not hold hands. You know
Also,
your
I'm
limits.
sorry for my... that probably looked really weird when I did that. So anyways, they're at the vineyard and then this lion's there. Like he's almost coming up to danger, but then danger does come.
In a different form.
In a different form, a stinking lion. But then the Spirit of God rushes on Samson, and he's able to rip apart this lion. It says like he rips it like a goat. I don't know how many people rip goats apart, but like, yeah, it talks about that in the text.
They said it was like a Middle Eastern practice back then to rip apart like baby goats. They would do that. So that was the reference, is they would just take baby goats and that's how they would rip them apart. And I was like, he did that with a what? A lion?
A lion. Huh? So yeah, PETA would be having a field day.
Have you ever had a lion leg?
You have, probably from Zambia, Africa.
No, that's wrong. That's so wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
Over here we have lion leg. I'm like, listen, I'll just have the chicken.
I'll have the chicken. So anyways, he kills this lion and then he doesn't talk to his parents about it. And later he walks back towards Timnah, to this Philistine woman, and he notices in the carcass there's this honey, and he takes the honey and he eats it, and then he gives it to his parents, and he doesn't tell his parents like, oh, this is where I got it from. And pause, we talked about this before. He has a Nazirite vow.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to drink wine. He's by the vineyard. He's not allowed to cut his hair. He keeps his hair. But he's not allowed to touch dead bodies.
Yeah.
Yet he's murderous, and he's touching dead bodies to get this honey out. Like, he's a slime ball.
Yeah.
He's not telling people where he's doing these things and where he's getting these things and all that. And man, you want to hit a little bit on that?
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago at my church, we talked about, we're going through like a wisdom series, and we talked about that week specifically rashness and the idea of like being impulsive and making decisions without like really counting the cost or thinking about it before you make those decisions. And of course, of all the examples that they could have pulled, they were like, we're going to jump into Judges chapter 14 today. And I was like, man, you ahead of the game for us. And there was just so many great things that they brought up about how we live in a society where sometimes things are very fast paced, right? And sometimes spontaneousness, if that's a word, is encouraged. Like if you want to go like, hey, let's go on a road trip. Like let's go to Flagstaff. Let's go to the beach. Let's go do this thing. Like those things are fun and those can be really awesome. But if you have to make like really serious decisions in your life, jumping to decisions faster than what you probably should, when you should count the cost or you should consider the consequences, you're going to have a much harder time finding success in life. And also you're going to just find yourself in a lot of trouble in a lot of situations because you're just so quick to think, you're so impulsive, you're so fast, you're so rash in your decisions. But that also goes on the other side of how we respond to situations. We're a very reactive culture. We see things happen and we react versus we see something happen and then we think and then react, or we would respond in a way that shows that we're not taking things just for what it is. So like if a headline hits the news about something, people read that headline and they call that truth. That is like their Bible to them. They read something and they're like, that is truth. But you don't know the full story. Things come out all the time where it was like, oh, this was a misconception. So sorry about that. And we're just so quick to react to things and be so responsive. And I've just learned in my life that there are so many times where I am tempted, especially with like driving. I don't know if you're someone that has road rage, but I get road rage sometimes. And I was so convicted after that message just to really consider like even just the simple phrase of like, just don't be rash. If something's going on, like I try to think now, like it's obviously sometimes it really just is bad drivers or people that are driving crazy. But sometimes like, what if it's an emergency? What if someone needs to get somewhere right now? They need to fly by you. And so I try to think of the best case scenarios in those things. But it's always that phrase that comes back to me is don't be rash.
I like that. I'm just thinking about this, and it almost seems like chapter 14 in all is just talking about how rash and impulsive Samson is. He likes the girl.
Yeah.
I want the girl. I see honey in a dead carcass. Even though I'm not allowed to touch it, I want the honey.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give it to my dad and not tell him about it because like I'm a sneaky guy.
Yeah.
And then right after that, so he tells these people, so he's marrying this Philistine woman, and then he tells them this riddle. And the riddle goes, hey, if you're able to get this riddle, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. And then he says, out of the eater comes something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. And he's almost flaunting it, taunting. You don't know what I did.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Like, you don't know where I got this honey, and you're not going to be able to get this riddle. He's just like this. He's so slimy. So anyways, his wife, these guys, they come and pressure her, and they're like, we can't figure out this riddle. You need to figure it out, or we're going to burn your house down and kill everybody in your family.
Yeah.
And so then she's freaking out, and she's pressuring Samson. And
Yeah.
on the 7th day, Samson's like, all right, I'm sick of your crap, and tells her what the riddle is. And then she goes and tells the people like what's going on because she's pressured. She's afraid. And we face pressures all the time. And when we're pressured, we usually do some stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what are some pressures that we face like daily?
Yeah. So I think of, especially in the context of this is like when we think of the passage of what we're reading, you have the Philistines and you have the Israelites, right? Samson's considered an Israelite. And even though we're already getting a really bad start to who Samson is, of making mistakes, being impulsive, doing completely contrary to what his vows were, not even just a commandment, like something that was special and unique and set apart already within a relationship with God, he's already turned away from those things. So we're not on a great start. But still, he's from Israel. He's still a chosen nation by God. And the Philistines don't accept God. They have their pagan traditions. They have those idols that they worship. And they probably, I don't know if the Philistines specifically practice like sacrifice like some of the other tribes do. But regardless, they're not a great influence. And so in this situation, you see that even though Samson is not the best example, you still see that Samson has extended the hand and has chosen this Philistine woman to be his wife. And the Philistines hate the Israelites, right? Got some beef with them. And especially coming pretty soon, they're going to have a ton of beef with Samson. And so she starts facing this pressure where They're saying like, hey, like he brought this riddle upon us, but like, are you going to leave us impoverished? Like, are you going to like let him rob us from this? Like, get out, like figure out the riddle or we're going to burn your house down, and threatens them. And what I think of today is we don't have the Philistines, but we have non-believers, and we don't have Israel, but we have the Christian faith. And there are going to be so many times in our life, especially when you're like a new believer, more often than not, I get this a lot too. And especially with Ask Us Why, I get DMs all the time from people where they're a new believer. They've just come to the faith, but they're facing so much pressure from their family and from their friends because none of them are believers. None of them hold to the faith. And so they get pressure all the time pushing on them that like, hey, if you're going to keep going to church, if you're going to keep acting this way, if you're going to keep saying these things, I don't want to affiliate myself with you anymore. And so that community that you had held on to for so long, like you're tied to that and you're afraid to lose that. And I think that there's something we'll talk here a little bit about fear and what she was experiencing there. And that fear was forcing her to make decisions that went against her just simply going to Samson and saying that like, I got a problem that we got to deal with. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, like you might face pressure from your work. Like, hey, like you've been posting about this on social media. If you keep talking about this stuff, we're going to let you go. Or if you keep talking about Jesus with your coworkers, I'm just gonna have to fire you. I have friends who have been fired for being bold in their faith. Yeah. You could have family members or friends that are gonna, again, like I said, like they're gonna want to back out on you. They're gonna want to abandon you and leave you behind because of the things that you believe. But the question is are you gonna let fear make the decision for you of what you're gonna choose to do with that? Or are you gonna turn to God and have faith?
Yeah, and kind of wrapping up this story in this chapter. So she chooses fear, and she tells the people, and then the people come to Samson, and they're like, "What's sweeter than honey?"
Yeah,
and what's stronger than a lion? And he knew. He's like, if you hadn't gone to my wife, you would have never gotten this riddle.
Yep.
And then he's pissed off, and he goes and he murders people, and he gets the linen garments from the people that he murdered and gave it to the people. And then he goes back to what a twist. He just kills them and gives them their garments. Then he goes back to his father's house, and his wife is given to his best man or his friend. And
that is tough.
Yeah, but he doesn't know about it yet. He's gonna find out pretty soon. Yeah. He's like, wait, what's happening? So anyways, he's just this hothead, and we kind of like read the story of Samson, and you're just like, man, he sucks. And God keeps using him. Mm-hmm. He sucks. And I was reading this chapter, and like this actually came to me today, and I was thinking about the story of Hosea. And there's this book in the Bible where God has Hosea marry this person named Gomer, and she's a prostitute woman, and she keeps leaving him, and he goes and finds her and brings her back, and then she leaves and goes back to prostitution. He brings her back, and it's this massive book and this story about how that's the relationship with God and Israel. They're prostituting themselves to all these idols and these old ways and these sins, and God saves them and brings them back, and then they go back and prostitute themselves to these idols and these sins, and God brings them back.
Yeah.
And then I realized Samson is the story of God with us individually. Mm. I look at, man, in my own life, I have this impulsive look, man, I want that thing. Yeah. Get it for me. And there's this TikTok going crazy right now where this guy is preaching, and he's talking about how, man, it's bad for a parent to give a kid everything they want, right? It's so bad, because if a kid gets everything that they want, then they're going to be spoiled, and it's just not good for them to have everything that they want. So then why do we expect that from our Heavenly Father? Everything that we want.
Yeah.
And so anyways, Samson has that, but we do that same thing. We're impulsive. We want things, and then we're upset when we don't get them. And then Samson, he walks up to the edge of the vineyard, and he's like right on the edge of sinning. But we do that. We go to the very edge of things that we know we shouldn't go. We message that person we know we shouldn't do. We isolate ourselves from other people. We go into places where we're bored and we're alone and we're isolated. And so then we do sin, and we go back to things like the vineyard where we know sin's about to happen. But yet God still uses Samson. He still uses him. And then he has this lion, and he fights the lion, and he kills the lion because of the Spirit of God. And it's just this crazy thing where we're just like Samson. We're impulsive. We are at places we shouldn't be at, but yet God still uses us. And what a beautiful thing that God loves us so much that the only reason we have greatness in us, because we suck, the only thing that there's reason there's good in us is because God's good. and he still
Yeah.
uses us despite our flaws.
Yeah. When you had texted me and you were like, bro, I got the best takeaway for us. I was like, okay. And I went and read it and I was like, oh, frick. That's too true, bro. It's true. There's such a great point there too, about how we look at characters in the Bible, or we look at people around us in our life and we go, I can't believe they would do something like that. How could, like, really, like, that person, they did that? And we just stand in disbelief and in awe that people do things that are sinful or turn us away. But exactly what you're saying here, like, there's a truth to be told that more often than not, that's us. And we might not think that because we more often than not measure our goodness by how we treat those around us, by those like actual physical relationships we have. But if we're not aware of our relationship with God, we're not measuring it by our relationship with him. And we don't realize how often when we sin, we're creating offenses against God. Mm-hmm. Like we're separating ourselves from him every single time we do those things. He set us apart, and he's given us commandments, and he's told us how to live a life. And we still choose to neglect that and to sin and to push ourselves away from him. But we still think from down here, we're like, no, but I'm good to my friends. And, you know, like I do my due diligence in society and I contribute and I do all those things, but we don't measure it in that sense. And so that's such a great point in perspective to realize that more often than not, it's a reflection of like who we are. I've heard that too before sometimes, that sometimes you see a sin in someone's life and you see it repetitively and it bothers you. And more often than not, it's because it's a reflection of a sin that you struggle with in your life. One other thing that I got from this that was just interesting to me is at the very end of this, Samson has done all this crap. He's a slime ball, right? And by the end of it, he's pissed off because his Philistine, at that time, fiance gives in and pressures him to give the answer, and he gives the answer, and then he goes and kills 30 of them, gives them the linens, and then he storms off back home. But it says that instead of going home, that he went and lived in like the cleft of a rock. It says that he separated himself, right?
I believe that's 15.
Oh man, am I skipping to 15?
You are.
Gosh, dang it. We're gonna have to save that takeaway for that week. Actually, I think it's 16.
Yeah.
It is 16. That's right. Man, I'm bummed. I had a really cool takeaway, but I'm going to save that for that episode. It sucks when you read all of it and you get them all mixed up together.
All good. Well, I'm just going to say one last point is even though Samson struggles and he sins and he's impulsive, God still uses him.
Yeah.
But God makes it very clear, and there's a passage, I'm going to look it up right now, that even though we're sinful, he's going to use us, but we can choose to be good.
Yeah.
And we can be over those impulses with the help of God. And it's in 2 Timothy 2, verse 20. It says, "Now in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for honorable use, and some are for dishonorable use. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart as holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work." And so I just want to encourage you, like, you don't have to be the person that's impulsive. Every time you see something that you like, you don't have that delayed gratification. Like, you don't wait and see things through and know if it's a good thing from God or not. Or you don't have to be the person that walks up to the vineyard and puts his toes on the line and sees how far they can go before they sin. You can be someone who's ready for every good work. You can set yourself apart to be honorable for the kingdom of God. And you don't have to be somebody who is like Samson, who's going off of what he desires and what he wishes.
Yeah. And I'm just going to tack on to that this one-liner. You ready for this? No matter how much God uses us in our disobedience, how much more can he use us in our obedience? So sometimes we justify the sin in our lives, and it feels really good to hear like God still he's gonna use you no matter what your past is, no matter the mistakes you've made. Like, he's still gonna use you for his kingdom, and there is truth to that, and that is great. But sometimes the enemy likes to twist that on us, and he likes to say, well, if he's gonna use you, live in that sin anyways. Like, it just soak yourself in death and in sin, because God's still gonna use you, right? But the truth is that he can do so much more with us if we just choose obedience. If we choose to like follow his commands, if we choose to actually imitate the character of Christ and live the way that he told us to, and to live out the commands that Jesus left us with, God can use us so much more, immensely more than he could if we're living in disobedience. And so like, that's my encouragement to you guys, is that if you're in a season where maybe you've been falling away and you've been living in sin, or you haven't been close to Christ, whatever it is, one of those examples, there's still encouragement and there's still hope that God is going to use you, and he wants to use every single person in a way that is beneficial for the kingdom, and ultimately, we pray, brings you closer to him. But at the same time, don't let that be the crutch on which you stay in your sin for. Like, God can use you so much more if you just choose to be obedient. And so when we come to God and we say, God, I want you to use me. I want you to make me a vessel for your plan and your will in this world. Like, he can do so much more if you not just have a relationship with him, but like seek out what he calls us to do and then do those things. He's going to use us all the more.
I love it. And I think that's the perfect point to just wrap it up. Like, just be obedient.
Just be obedient. Heck yeah, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in for chapter 14 with us. We hope you guys loved it. If you did, leave us a review. I'm gonna hammer that in for this whole series. Just leave reviews. Leave reviews. Just tell us your thoughts. It helps. It helps it get out to other people. It helps us reach more people like you that we believe we're making an impact for, or we hope we can make an impact for. And so if you guys could do that, that would be super appreciative to us. And if not, just make sure you're following us on social media. And if you want to check out our merch, you can over at askuswhyshop.com. Stay tuned, because I think pretty shortly here in the next like week or so, we're going to be dropping our Hope Club collection, and it's going to be fire. So other than that, we love you guys, and we hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Peace and blessings.